I don't deserve this. To die like this. I was building a house. Deserves got nothing to do with it. I'll see you in hell, William Money.
The Sockjig Sneaker Podcast is apparently a template for complex articles. Welcome to the Sockjig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sockjig. You can follow me on Twitter at Sockjig and on Instagram as well. Thanks for the feedback on the last episode of part 1 of the Trophy Room release. I go into part 2 of this saga. You know, what's the saga? I need a saga. It's Trophy Rooms for No One is the saga. So I continue it today. I continue the Queens of the Stone Age references as well. You know, I go through what happened with the release, the raffle, sneakers, and I go into a bit more detail about what I heard about all the alleged backdooring. I go into the blue laces and the retail price differences, Nike's reaction, and then I kind of wrap it up with my opinion as well this time. So it's, again, the only topic this week, but first I'll do pickups and what's on feet. On feet this week, when it hasn't been snowing, has been the Mars Yard 2.0. Yes, I have a pair that I've actually worn, and I've shared the story before, but just to recap, I bought these on StockX for around $650 US, and shortly after the release, that's what they were going for around the time, and I undeadstocked them right away. It's like, it's for me, it's no problem undeadstocking a shoe that's worth say $1,000 or $800. So there's a tweet of mine even from like 2017 where I even say, buy these, they're going to be $1,000 soon. I usually bring it up every 9 months or so to pat myself on the back. But, the way the shoe's gone since then has been just kind of astronomical. It's like whatever it's at, 5,000, 7,000 now, especially for the smaller sizes. If I had kept them dead stock, I probably wouldn't be wearing them now because it's like, there's just this barrier of I cannot wear a shoe that's worth $5,000. That's not very uncommon. And even now that I have these shoes, I don't even know how to sell them. I don't want to ship them to GOAT as a used thing. I don't even deal with Facebook groups. I don't want to list there, have someone ask me to take 1 million photos and kind of analyze it. So for me, I just wear it, and that's kind of the point of the shoe. The shoe is supposed to be like this art project by this artist. On top of the box, it says, these shoes are only valid if worn and worn to death by you. Posers need not apply. And to me, that was the big draw of this shoe, that it was basically this art project shoe that shouldn't really exist. And that's the part that gets lost in the hype, that it gets kind of discarded because it's a shoe that's worth $5,000 and it's a shoe for the rich, and that's the direction it's gone. But that's not where it started, and so I feel like I am true to the shoe, even if I don't wear it every single day, like these challenge things that's been going on. Like, I just wear them once every couple months, and that's it, and I put them back on the shelf. But it is nice to have an expensive shoe that you can sell at any time. But don't message me, I'm not selling. For pickups, I was able to pick up the Court Purple SB from Premiere. I don't have these in hand either, but I'm really looking forward to getting them. I wasn't a big fan of the Street Hawker shoe as a shoe that I would like to actually, put on your feet. But, the concept and the kind of execution as just a shoe that you can appreciate from far away, that part I did like. But these ones, I'm really looking forward to getting these in hand. Any shoe that's inspired by kind of Jordan colorways is, I don't care what people say. Those have always been the kind of the gateway to SB for me. I was also able to pick up the Stussy Huarache, the olive colorway. I tried for both of them in size 13 because, Huaraches usually fit a bit snug, so I just size up. I tweeted before that, I've always had problems with Stussy drops. They've never not gone wrong for me. Either the checkpoint was enabled late or the H capture thing was just, bombarded with requests at the time. That was for that AF1 drop. But for this, it was pretty standard. I sat in queue for about 4 or 5 minutes, which is a long time. And I know a lot of people were basically in that queue forever. So I'm sure there's some sort of bug there. When I got out of the queue, the Desert Oak one was sold out, and so usually what happens with these kind of drops is the exclusive colorway actually has more stock, whereas the other one that's going to go out to other stores usually has half, which kind of makes sense if you just assume that the stock on both is the same. And finally, I do have a pair of trophy room ones on the way. A friend had access to pairs, and he was asking who wanted a pair, and so I said, "Sure, I'll take one." Shout out to HMac Eater on Twitter. He's one of the true OGs on sneaker Twitter. He's one of these guys that's seen everything, has probably a ton of stories that he can't tell, and that's why I say he's one of these true OGs on sneaker Twitter and well respected all around, and rightfully so. And I know the sentiment around this release is a lot of anger now, and understandably so. But back then, when this opportunity came up, it was kind of the total opposite. It was a lot of hope and enthusiasm, and assuming that it was going to be a fair and equitable kind of release. Do you remember that glorious time? It's hard to think about it now, but I don't have these in hand yet, and of course, nothing is guaranteed till it's in hand. But I'm looking forward to it, and to me, it's just going to be a collection piece. I don't really have any intention of selling this or trade bait is the other thing that people will tell themselves, that I'm going to just hold on to this as trade bait. I'm not one of those guys that does trades. I have no desire to do any of that kind of stuff. For me, it'll probably just be on the shelf right beside the CPFM Swarovski Crystal Dunks. And, future me can deal with it. But let's get into the details of the trophy room release. Before I get into it, I'd asked people on Twitter that they could leave a message if they wanted to record on the podcast. And you can do that if you want at anchor.fm/Sockjig. There's a message button and you can leave like a voice recording. So I asked people, hey, if you have a rant about the trophy rooms, send it here and I might include it on your podcast. So here are some. The views expressed here do not represent Sockjig. These are from actual listeners. Take it away.
Hey. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I guess the preface to my message is that I'm in no way upset or heated or salty that I missed out on the trophy rooms, which is always a reply to somebody who has any criticism over a hype release or, a botched release like this. I just definitely agree with you that Marcus Jordan must be some sort of evil genius to cook up a shoe that tells a story about his father being frozen out from the All-Star game, and then to actively freeze out anybody who wanted to buy these if they didn't have any connections or they didn't have enough money to buy in bulk, or if your geographical proximity was not close enough to trophy room. Just what a guy. It's like a tweet from SB Mitch said, who knew that a notorious egomaniac in Michael Jordan would have a son that's also a notorious egomaniac? That's it. On to the next one. The game is the game.
I just want to say, Marcus Jordan, you're an absolute fraud. All you talk about is your dad this, your dad that. You never talk about anything what you did because you're an absolute fraud. Yeah, you're just making money off everything your dad did. Like, keep staying on his beef, bro.
Yes, could you please explain how I'm supposed to cop shoe without any power or water? That would be cool.
Yo, what's up, Sockjig? My name's Key, Chef Boyard Key on Twitter. So I knew I had no chance getting these ones off rip, but my group had sent out the link for the raffle that you had to email, and it's literally as soon as I clicked on the link, the page was dead. So I knew my chances were wrapped. But as I closed my laptop screen and walked away in defeat, I instantly thought about what you would have said for Mr. Brightside, and I had added you and asked you if you could make one, which you already did, and you redirected me to it, and I got a laugh out of it. So what was my inevitable L was still an L, but I got a bright side out of it. Thanks.
Long-time listener, first time, whatever the fuck this is. I missed out on a lot of sneakers because I am completely washed. And that means I go on to StockX and just kind of buy them after the release, figure out what the best time is. Here, I didn't even have a chance to buy the sneaker. Like, that raffle was total bullshit. I have no desire to go buy a sneaker I didn't even have a chance on. It's bad when you did a worse job than Dior releasing sneakers. Like, more Dior's ended up in the hands of real people who wanted them, or could at least make a massive bag off them than these. And that's pretty shitty. So overall, I think it's an amazing shoe. I would love to have it, but I'm never going to invest the money in it because I never had a chance to even get it. So way to fuck it up, Marcus.
Yeah, so with the trophy room ones, I mean, it was my daughter's wedding that day, and I thought I had a good chance. I mean, Marcus was hyping it up, said it was for the family and everything, and I've been rocking with trophy room for a long time. I mean, I've always supported by entering the raffles on hyped releases and everything. So, I thought I had a pretty good chance. So I had my daughter postpone her wedding for like 2 or 3 hours just to make sure I had time to enter the raffle, but the entire email server crashed and everything. I just couldn't get my entry in. It was pretty disappointed. I mean, Marcus kind of let me down, but I know he's in it for the family and he's all about fairness. So I'm just feel happy for the winners, the lucky winners who were able to get their pairs. And I'm just thanking Marcus for a pretty good release. I think it was pretty fair. I think he should do it like that in the future.
So for the release, it was finally announced by Marcus that, it's going to be a raffle on February 10th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you heard the last podcast when I talked about, all the alleged backdooring, a raffle makes the most sense because it can totally cover up how much stock you actually release. If you do an online release, usually either the monitors itself can pick up how much stock was loaded, or you can tell the difference from order numbers itself. So, some of these groups have thousands of members. Some they can just say, hey, post what your order number starts with, like 26XX. And someone will say, hey, mine is 29XX. So then you realize that, okay, there's probably around 3,000 pairs that went out. But when you do a raffle, it's kind of way harder to do that because the winners are basically distributed all over the place instead of concentrated into one kind of online release where there are multiple people that hit in one group. So when the raffle came, it was actually built on some external tool that didn't work. The servers probably crashed due to too much traffic. After a few minutes, it was changed to an email raffle, which is how they've done raffles in the past. So it was like, send your details to raffle@trophyroomstore.com or whatever it was. Those emails quickly started bouncing because that's just how emails work. They're allocated a certain amount of storage space, and if you go over the storage space, everything else starts bouncing. And I had even kind of forecasted this in a DM with a friend that it's just going to get box full errors, and that's exactly what happened. So as a response to, basically everyone saying that they couldn't even enter, later it said due to demand, the raffle reopened at 12:45, but really the same thing happened again. It was just an email raffle. And what's interesting here was they did not seem to use the same kind of raffle scripts that have been going around that you see at places like, Undefeated has their version of it, and Livestock and even Premiere, when they do raffles, have like that specific HCAPTCHA form raffle. So whatever known raffle things that are out there, they chose to not do those and do something else completely different. And of course it blew up in their face, but maybe it was designed to blow up in their face the whole time. When you think back on it now, does it really matter that they got the raffle, errors and stuff like that they really tried to get your entries in? Because did they really try, or was it all a big sham from the first place? Around the same day, Sneakers did a release as well too, and it was all early access. There were screenshots going around of the stock as rumored from 234 to 500 or so, and no one has exact stock numbers for size specific stuff for sneakers that I've seen before. So, but by judging by the number of winners, I think I saw a hand like maybe 3. I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly how many went out. Say 500. So after the raffle concluded, it said that winners would be announced at 5:23 p.m., which is the time on the ticket kind of thing. And guess what? No one won. Usually you'll see a handful of winners here and there. Hey, I won. Remember when Travis Scott had raffles? There was winners then. You saw them distributed all over the place. This time, nary a peep. Nothing. There's far more winners for Dior, which seemed like a totally fair raffle, and they had, I think, similar stock numbers. I think both Dior high and low probably have like 10, 12, or 15,000. And of course, later some guy from Orlando shows that he won, and it turns out, he follows Marcus and he's posed with him, and he's probably, his friend. Ben Baller won too and flexed order number 3, Really, it was probably like 30,000 something, and he just whited out the other numbers. But really, who cares about him? Okay, I'll go into a few more details about what I heard about this release. And just like last time, the disclaimer is that this is all allegedly, this is all second or third hand information, not first hand. I did not have a direct backdoor or anything like that. And a lot of the stuff I didn't mention last time because it wasn't completely out there. People were still making moves and trying to secure pairs, sell pairs. I'm not trying to ruin anything for them. But if you listen closely, I was basically inferring everything. And I was generally right in that podcast, everything that I said. The only part I got wrong, I think, is that the store is actually closed in Orlando. So in that last podcast, I said, what if they split? In that podcast, I said, what if they have 6,000 for the actual release and 3,000 are in store and 3,000 are online? So that's the part I got wrong, that the store is currently closed. So theoretically, all those pairs that should have been available for the online raffle drop. So what I heard beforehand was basically 75% of the stock had been backdoored, allegedly. So 75% is 9,000 pairs. So I heard that the backdoor price, the first level backdoor price was $1,000, and that you had to buy lots, like hundreds and hundreds. So it's possible that Trophy Room only really dealt with a dozen buyers or even less, which makes a lot of sense, because why would you want to deal with 90 different buyers who only want 100 pairs each, or, even less, hundreds of buyers that want 25 pairs? It just doesn't make sense. It's just too many people involved. It's better to deal with a dozen or so. And I've seen photos where their shipments have come in, and those have been shipped in the same bulk boxes that Nike ships, straight from Memphis. It's got the security tape on it. I posted an example of one on my Twitter when I've ordered, a dozen pairs of something from Nike.ca. And so all the people that you saw flexing, those people are probably a couple levels removed from that first level of backdoor. The people who have the most pairs aren't posing in any photos. They're probably the ones that sold to the second level for, say, 1,500 or 1,600 or 1,800. Back then, that's what the price was. It all depends on kind of when they bought it and when they paid. So, if that first level bought it at $1,000 and they sold it at $1,500, they forecasted that shoe to be a $2,000 shoe. But the market is so unpredictable. No one really thought that this would be a $4,000 shoe. Selling a $2,000 shoe in bulk for $1,500 makes a lot of sense. If they knew the market would be $3K, I'm sure that backdoor price would have been $2K and the bulk price would have been like $2.5K or something like that. And it's no shock that a lot of these sellers, especially on Instagram, a lot of big names on there, I saw stories where they were selling for $1,800, all pairs available for $2,000, all the way up to 2.5, then gone up to $3K, and now it's just like DM for price. And then, then on Facebook, someone is calling out that seller because they didn't ship. It's a lot of money. So if you promise to sell a shoe for $1,800 and now the going price is $3,500, guess what? There was an error in the shipment. I got the wrong size. Maybe I don't have your size now. Hey, I flaked. What can I tell you, buddy? Take it up with consumer affairs. So that's what I had heard originally, that 75% had been backdoored. So what happened with the rest? We basically saw 0 raffle winners. If 9,000 were backdoored and say 500 were for sneakers, that means 2,500 are left. Say it's possible that someone holds back 1,000 pairs. For example, Union had their big, 2 big hype drops. If I was, Chris Union, I would hold back hundreds of pairs. So in that case, in this example then, 9,000 backdoored, 500 for sneakers, 1,000 held back. There's 1,500 pairs for raffles, but there's actually 0 raffle winners. So it's possible that everything was backdoored, and I think that's what people have come to realize afterwards. The hilarious part is there wasn't even any raffle winners for the clothing. And then what about the blue laces? I actually heard that even the blue laces are available backdoor. The price might be in the hundreds, like $400 or $500 or higher. Less if you're closer. Same thing. Those are all limited to what I heard was low thousands, And people want them because, one, it authenticates your shoe as coming directly from Trophy Room. And two, GOAT has a separate friends and family listing for these shoes with the blue laces that sells for $7,000. So if you can buy $500 laces for your $3,000 shoes, you now have a $7,000 item. So we're at the point where, t-shirts, shorts, and laces have been backdoored. It's like basically everything was fleeced out and out the door, allegedly. I had mentioned the order number part before, and one idea that I had on Twitter was, and I wouldn't even do this, it was just an idea of what's technically possible, was that if you bought something before the raffle, there's a pair of socks or something on this site for $10, and then you noted your order number, and then after the raffle was kind of over, you bought something again, you could notice a difference in the order numbers, and then you would see how many invoices went out, in ballpark area. This is getting into real sneaker CSI kind of territory, and I really didn't care that much. I was just thinking about what was technically feasible here. But back to the release, especially with the blue rate laces and stuff, the perception that there's a lot of fakes out there. There's that Spider-Man meme where the 3 Spider-Men are pointing at each other and they're all wearing the Trophy Rooms, and the caption says, like, when you're all wearing the same numbered pairs. I think that meme was therapy for a lot of people, because it gave them the validation, that sense that yes, all those pairs out there are fake, and therefore I feel better about myself because I'm not an idiot wearing fakes like those guys are. Nice Kicks reposted this. I think it was Ken from Resell Memes who had originally posted someone else's, and every IG commenter on Nice Kicks was just laughing it up, like, haha, these guys don't know what they're doing. Have fun with your fakes. Or the other thing was the blue laces. What about the blue laces though? I've seen photos on Instagram of even the people who did win on Sneakers exclusive access. Even they didn't have blue laces. Bun B was seated by Jordan Brand. He didn't have blue laces. Like I said in the last podcast, I was pretty much right that blue laces were a really clever smokescreen. It, sowed enough doubt out there that the backdoored pairs are not legitimate. And so you can feel better about yourself. That was before the release when you thought you still had a chance. The other thing was there was 2 different prices. One said $170 and one said $190. And even that's not a foolproof. That's not, a smoking gun that these are fakes either, because the Travis 1 highs had the same thing. And I think with the 2 different prices, they had 2 different production dates. So they either got it wrong and then they had fixed it in the next production is most likely what happened. Nike has price mistakes all the time. These cream off-white Jordan hoodies that released a while back, some places dropped them for $150 and then other places had it for $350. So that was just a price mistake. And that kind of nakedly displayed, the $200 markup that Nike puts on off-white stuff. So understandably, the reaction to all this was a lot of anger. And High Snobiety actually reached out to Nike or Jordan Brand and asked for a statement about all this alleged backdooring. Their statement was comedy. Well, it was kind of noteworthy they even made a statement, but when you read the statement, it doesn't even say anything. It said, "We remain committed to serving our consumers with authentic Jordan products through Nike.com and our strong distribution network and channels in both online and at brick and mortar retail." Thank you, lawyer, who copy pasted that from their Word doc that they already had. The other reaction you saw a lot was, why is Marcus doing this? He doesn't even need the money. He's totally rich already. Which is, pretty funny if you actually stop to think about it. It turns out rich people really like money. $10 million is a lot of money, even if you're rich. And all this, this alleged backdooring going on. What can Nike, I mentioned this last time too, what can Nike really say? Who on their executive board can say anything to Michael Jordan? Maybe Phil Knight, maybe Mark Parker. The president of Jordan Brand is a guy named Craig Williams. Maybe he could say something. But why would they? What is their incentive to say anything to Michael Jordan? That this is a bad look. It's a meme now, but Michael Jordan would essentially say, fuck them kids. But I'm sure Nike took note on how this went. Maybe future exclusive releases are handled, differently, especially with Jordan 1s, maybe with Trophy Room, but I'm not confident on that either. The damage has already been done here. What's interesting is there's literally no consequences and not that much damage to your rep either. And when it comes to damage to your rep, does Marcus care? Most of us don't, say scam because it's not right, and two, it would, damage your rep. Back into the sneaker deal, sneaker Twitter world. When it comes to scams, your rep is worth more than a profit on any one shoe. But the scammers that do this don't care. They take that kind of Faustian bargain of money over their rep. I'm not saying what Marcus did is a scam, but it's definitely got the same kind of heat signature. But there's no real damage to his rep because he doesn't even have to say anything. There's no consequences, but he doesn't even have to say anything. He doesn't have to defend his rep because the Nice Kicks commenter is out there saying, what about the blue laces though? This is why I call this kind of release genius. It was a perfect storm in terms of here was someone who had basically a Chicago 1 in super limited numbers. He's sowed the seed of doubt with this blue lace story cover smokescreen thing, and there's literally no consequences. And I said that, this can definitely, people are watching, and this can definitely change the way hyper strikes are done in the future. Maybe not Nike or Jordan. They're not going to change anything that's going to work, that's still working for them. And, Nike and Jordan does have to keep consumers in mind. They still need to release those, the Jordan 11s, the Fire Red 4 type of releases every, quarterly or so. But I'm almost positive that others are looking on with a lot of interest because what we saw here was a hype shoe selling at its true market price because there was no retail release. Others have been doing this a little bit here and there. New Balance had a StockX IPO with a denim tiers guy, no vacancy in. And that was a random New Balance 550. But New Balance could totally do this with, say, a 992 because all 992s that release in the collab ones have maybe 500, 600, 1,000, very limited. There's examples of Ticketmaster in the past kind of selling their tickets at resale price. I'm not a card guy, but I've heard of Panini doing the same thing, doing Dutch auctions for some of their boxes. And think of it in the sports world too. Think of what is LeBron James' true value as a free agent if there was no salary cap. How much would teams be willing to pay for him? Because think of prime LeBron James here. They would be paying a lot. Or the same thing in football, whereas a quarterback has so much more value on a team than any other player other than, say, left tackle or whatever. That kind of follows along with my opinion here. I can't be out here and say the game is the game and then get mad at the game. But I totally understand the anger. The part that's been pretty funny has been when resellers get bad. So, I know a lot of resellers had access to buy these pairs. And if you didn't have access, then that is kind of something that you can work on. That's worth being mad about. But you can't put on the reseller, the sneakerhead hat and take off the reseller hat and then be angry as a sneakerhead. You kind of have to leave that reseller hat on if that's the mode you're in. And I've always said the stock amount is part of the design of the shoe. When Off-Whites have 30K of a Jordan 4, that's part of the design. They did not want to have 120K. And here is the same thing. The design of this shoe was to say you have 12,000, but really the public stock was 0. One of the things that, a sneakerhead will always ask, tell themselves is, I kind of deserve this shoe. I love Chicago 1s. I don't have Chicago 1s. I don't have the Spider-Man or any of the other ones. And the cold open from the beginning of this episode was from the movie Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. When he shoots the bad guy, the guy says, I don't deserve this. And Clint Eastwood said, deserve's got nothing to do with it. So many people think that they deserve what they have not worked for or earned. And here, all any of us really deserved was a fair opportunity. And that was taken away from us. When you enter on sneakers and you didn't get them, it usually sucks and you vent your frustrations. But if you're on sneakers and you couldn't even enter, like for the Street Hawker, and you just get errors, that's the worst. Here we got, the illusion of an opportunity. This, sham raffle thing. Friends told me that they were kind of sick of seeing my tweets about this. because I was going on and on about it. But, what that told me is they've kind of moved on from it while others have not. They're not at the acceptance part of the stages of grief yet. And so in any trauma or grief, there's 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And if you think through those stages, we've seen it all here. The denial is, all those early pairs are fake. Or, what about the blue laces? The anger is obvious, to Marcus and Trophy Room and Nike and everyone, rightfully so. The bargaining is, I've seen people come back, the price was $1,800 to $2,200. People come back way later and asking if that price is still available, or what shoes do I have that I can flip to get these? That's the kind of stuff we all do when we ever take an L on anything. Depression is just the part where you're just quietly sad about it and how it went. Acceptance is the part where you're just you're done with the shoe, you get it, you know what happened, you're fine with it now. Overall, I'm happy with my collection, so any one shoe that I miss on doesn't really affect me that much. And dealing with L's has always been part of the game, and how fast you get to this acceptance stage is should be commonplace by now for most sneakerheads. And that's where I do these Mr. Brightside segments on Twitter. My comment here was that the rollout kind of ruined the shoe, and sneakers for the rich all suck anyways. Which is true. These types of sneakers never cross into the plane of being among the greats, because people just don't wear them. It'll never be shoe of the year. Dior was an example of that. Even though Dior was released fairly, it's a $12,000 shoe. And it's nice and all, but it's not the best thing. A good counterexample of a good release was the Sean Wotherspoon 97 ones. There were a ton of those released. Regular people got them on sneakers or raffles or whatever, and regular people wore them, and they still go for a lot. That formula is hard to replicate. Off-White doesn't try to do that really. They try to release way fewer. I think those Weatherspoons probably might have had like 80K or something like that, whereas Off-Whites have half that or even less. Anyways, what I'm getting to is we need to move on to the acceptance part of the grief process and move on from this shoe. The shoe is gone. We never had a fair chance. If you want it, you can spend 4K or whatever it is at right now. Marcus's legacy is ruined, but what legacy did he really have anyways? And do the rich care? Probably not. So we can not care as well too. That's it for the podcast. That concludes the saga. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we don't talk about blue laces again. If you enjoyed it, leave a 5-star review for me on iTunes. That kind of stuff helps a lot. Or at least tell a friend. I feel like I'm talking about stuff here that not a lot of other podcasts will get into, this kind of details, or have the kind of inside information that I have that I can share here. So thanks again. I'll see you next time. See ya.